Welcome to the Bonhoeffer Show with Bill Hull. The show about stuff most people try to avoid, but can't because it controls their lives. Religion, culture, and politics. Why does Bill Hull host this show? Because he and Bonhoeffer hoisted a few brews together in Berlin. Nope. That never happened. Is it that Bonhoeffer's book, The Cost of Discipleship, both challenged and changed Bill as a young man? Well, yes, that is part of it. But it's primarily because Bonhoeffer called us to a costly discipleship, and there has never been a time when such courage has been more absent or desperately needed than now. Bonhoeffer famously said, "Christianity without discipleship is always Christianity without Christ." The Bonhoeffer Project is committed to turning leaders into disciple makers, because if leaders fail to create disciple-making movements, then we have failed. So, ladies and gentlemen, here he is. He's still tall and good-looking, and yes, he is wearing German cologne. He's acquired a few more underlying conditions, but direct from his underground bunker in Long Beach, California, the man who once told Don Henley, "You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave," Bill Hull.
Welcome to the Bonhoeffer Show. This is Bill Hull. We are tackling another one today that I'm sure won't take very long. Evil. Yes, that's the subject of today. Evil. We've been talking and tackling about some serious stuff lately in our last couple of programs. I know you'll bear with me as I try to speak to the issues of today. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who you know is the namesake or the person we've named the Bonhoeffer Project after, made famous this particular statement: silence in the presence of evil is evil itself. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. Remember when evil was evil and good was good? Bonhoeffer wasn't confused about evil. Boxcars of Jews being transported to extermination camps was evil. Isn't it interesting how many German Christians either said they didn't know, actually didn't know, but those who did know didn't think that that was evil. They thought that was part of what their country was doing, was relocating those people. And I don't think that the majority of Germans believed that they were being exterminated, but they went along with the idea of that they needed to be, that the Jewish people needed to be somehow removed from their society. This blindness or confusion or ignorance wasn't unique to mid-20th century Germans. Lovely Americans who were highly educated and part of the ruling class and of what we call the literary leaders of our country defended Joseph Stalin and the communist ideology from the 1920s until the 1960s. Both Nazism and socialism are utopian in nature. And we've talked about utopia, a word that means no place, because no one's ever been there. No one's, there might be travel brochures and nice films, but actually no one's ever arrived. They insist on purity of thought. They cannot abide dissent and require the control of the state to manage. That's what Nazism and socialism had in mind, similar. People finally catch on when the body count gets high and the corpses start piling up in the streets. But evil isn't what it used to be. It's now often appears as a fiery angel of light. He, she, or it is fast and is expert at inhabiting human minds, institutions, and communications. Philosopher Hannah Arendt a Jewish woman who grew up in Germany, born in 1906. She moved and immigrated to the United States. She was here in 1941 and became quite well known with her book that was published in 1951, The Origins of Totalitarianism. It was a classic. It was a bit obtuse, a little bit difficult to understand, but she was a brilliant woman. And in 1961, she was sent by the New Yorker magazine to the trial of Adolf Eichmann. This was Eichmann in Jerusalem. Eichmann was a Nazi bureaucrat who organized the transportation of millions of Jews to concentration camps or extermination camps, a project called the Final Solution. And Arendt found Eichmann an ordinary, rather bland bureaucrat who, in her words, was neither perverted nor sadistic, but terrifyingly normal. Whoa. Now, this really upset so many people. The people at the New Yorker were upset. Many of the Jewish community was upset because we want our evil people, the people we've said are evil, we want them to really be evil, and we don't want them to be anything like us. We don't want them to be ordinary. We don't want them to be normal. We don't want them to be like anything like us, because that means that it's possible that we could be that way. She published Eichmann in Jerusalem, Report on the Banality of Evil in 1963. This term banality of evil, it made her famous, even more famous. The term banality just means common, benign. It's still being debated today. The left didn't like her conclusion because they like to explain evil as not present in most people. You see, whereas the scriptures teach it as present in each person. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who was indeed a Christian, said that the line between good and evil runs through the hearts of a human being. And he was excoriated for that. But she said, but evil is not present in most people, but only resident in a special few who will be excised from our society. And so hang them, shoot them, get rid of them, put them in prison. But we don't want the evil people close to us. A mutation that must be cast off in humankind's grand ascent to enlightened morality, to the myth of progress, we might call it. This is what some mean when they say a conservative-minded person is on the wrong side of history. Because you see, a conservative-minded person is trying to conserve the past rather than trying to advance society, at least from the left point of view, I think, or the more liberal point of view, progressive point of view, is that the myth of progress is the idea that human beings, through technology and, this is sort of Hegelian, you got the thesis, the antithesis, and then you got the synthesis, and you synthesize truth, and it continues to go up society's escalator until you get higher and higher and higher and more pure and pristine and knowledgeable and enlightened, and society gets better and better and better. And that's the whole storyline of progressivism. And so when you take that into account, what they don't like about conservatism is saying, well, wait a minute, there is such a thing as human nature, a fixed human nature, which has sin involved in it. And that's the root of sin in each person, human fallenness. And there's great potential in each person for evil. She said, and it remains a thorn in the liberal side, I was struck, and here's what she says, and I quote, I was struck by the manifest shallowness in the doer, Eichmann, which made it impossible to trace the uncontestable evil of his deeds. So she's saying his deeds were not banal. His deeds were monstrous. But she goes on to say, uncontestable evil of his deeds to any deeper level of roots or motives. The deeds were monstrous, but the doer, at least the very effective one now on trial, was quite ordinary, commonplace, and neither demonic nor monstrous. In other words, given the right circumstances, any one of us could have done it. Now, nobody wants to hear that. No one. So evil isn't primarily located in systems or societies. Evil actually resides in every heart. It is through individuals that it escapes human restraint and then multiplies and metastasizes among families, neighborhoods, institutions, and societies. That is why German Christians could sing hymns louder. This actually happened. I'm not making this up. That German Christians would sing hymns louder on Sunday morning when the trains near their buildings would have Jews crying for help from the boxcars as their trains passed these churches on Sunday mornings, and they would just sing louder to drown out the cries. We humans have a way to protect ourselves from harm, to support the systems that provide protection and rationalize the reasons. We've heard it all. I was just following orders. I didn't know about it. I trusted my government. I believed the propaganda. The church needs to stay out of politics and preach the gospel. Boy, am I getting tired of that one. The reason I'm tired of it is because what are we supposed to do? Retreat into our hermetically sealed aquariums, stained glass aquariums, and just pretend that what's going on around us isn't going on? This is what Bonhoeffer was upset about. The church would spout their doctrines and talk about how wonderful Jesus was a long time ago, and they would sing their creeds and their Gregorian chants, but yet they wouldn't step in to the gap between the oppressor of the Jews and the Jews. And he said, if you don't step into that, you are not being his disciple. Not to speak in the presence of evil is itself evil. Dietrich Bonhoeffer. It all seems so clear looking back to Nazis, Germans, and Jews. But it gets a bit more sticky when we're talking about Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, media bias, abortion, same-sex marriage, trans women competing against against women rather. Where is the evil? Who is most evil? More importantly, how do you choose good from this collection of evil? It is always more difficult when you are in it, up to your eyeballs in it. The only recourse for the Christian is the Bible itself. How does the Bible define evil? That's where we want to go with this. And I'm not sure anybody will be satisfied when I'm done. But we're going to look at that after a break. We're going to hear about how you can get involved in the Bonhoeffer Project, how we turn leaders into disciple makers. And what we don't talk about is much of the stuff that we're talking about on this program. We talk about this stuff on the program because essentially it's what I am led to talk about, what I feel are the real issues that are facing us in our society, how we step up, how we live out our discipleship. These are the things that we as leaders need to be interested in and think about. But I'm not advocating that we become politicians. I'm not advocating that we somehow stop talking about the gospel and making disciples and all these kinds of things. I'm saying we need to make disciples, a new kind of disciple for a difficult time. That's what I'm really saying. That's what lays behind this whole thing. This is about the Great Commission. You know, if we keep sending people out that don't make any difference, then why send them out at all? Why not play golf? Why not just become a wine connoisseur? Do something else. All right, let's take a break.
We turn leaders into disciple makers. That's the mission of the Bonhoeffer Project. But before we can turn you into a disciple-making leader, we need you to be in a cohort. A cohort is a 1-year, 10-meeting, book reading, praying, wrestling, writing, planning challenge that has the potential to change you and thus redirect your life. Interested? Here's the process. Go to our website, thebonhoefferproject.com, and complete the application form. We will contact you. We will then help you select the type of cohort that's best for you. In person, online, or online school, which is asynchronous, so it's not affected by time zones and anyone in the world can access it. Oh, and training is now also available in Spanish. In the meantime, subscribe to the show, read one of Bill's books, and send us a question you want Bill or some member of the Bonhoeffer team to answer. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back. Biblical evil. Now, the Bible separates moral evil from physical evil, or natural evil, if you like. Moral evil is what people do. Physical evil is what nature does. Earthquakes, floods, disease, death, mudslides, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes. Physical evil is because the fall, which includes the entire realignment of the fallen earth versus what was a pre-fall earth. Now, this is a subject that scientists talk about, and I'm not a scientist, and I don't have the level of knowledge in this area, so I'll try to stay away from it. And all I can really say is that God is capable of creating, if a world was a certain way in the pre-fall existence, one of the things that we weren't able to do was scientists were not able to get samples from the pre-fallen earth. And that is a real disability for science, isn't it? Because all we can study is the post-fall earth. And that's all we know about, where things decay, for example, where the second law of thermodynamics is in play. But human evil or moral evil, when carried out, is considered a sin. The Ten Commandments are addressed to human decision and will. Idolatry, for example, misusing God's name, keeping the Sabbath, honoring your parents. Do not commit murder. Do not steal. Do not commit adultery. Do not give false testimony. Covet anyone's house, spouse, or property. All found in Exodus chapter 20, verses 3 through 11. It's all sorted out for Israel's daily life and religious life in the moral law and the ceremonial law, because there's three kinds of law. There's the moral law. Foundation of that is, of course, the Ten Commandments. There's a civil law, which is under a theocracy, how you live as a country. A lot of this can be found in Leviticus and Deuteronomy and other places. And then, of course, there is a ceremonial law for sacrificial life, primarily found in Leviticus. So, yeah, there's those kinds of law, but the Ten Commandments, the part of the moral law, is what Jesus is talking about when he says, you must love Jesus summed it all up this way in Matthew 22. He said, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the prophets are based on these two commandments. Okay, let's get more specific. A baseline has been established. Human consciousness is factory installed by God and agrees with its creator's moral design. It's beautiful how when you get locked into God, then the creation and your moral consciousness, which is all factory installed, fit together like a puzzle. It all makes sense. It really does. And until you do that, it doesn't make sense. The basis of law in Western civilization is built on the biblical narrative as experienced by humans for thousands of years. But a deeper dive into the New Testament on contemporary practices is needed to answer the question. So as people, we are separated at birth from God. It's called alienation. As David said in Psalm 51, his confessional psalm, in sin did my mother conceive me. All right. Romans 5:12 is a passage which says that sin entered into the world through one man and death through sin. And through him, everybody sinned. So yeah, the sin is inherent in being alive. We are made in his image, but that image is defaced, effaced. The remainder of life is the restoration of that separation. The goal is reconciliation with our Creator. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 1 through 10, 2 Corinthians chapter 5, 15 through 21. These are all really great passages talking about the separation, the alienation, and then the salvation, and then the reconciliation, and then moving on to ambassadorship. That's all right there. So every person is capable of evil. The degree to which we enter into evil is determined by how far away from God we stray. The New Testament provides several general lists of evil. Now let's just look at a couple of these. The first is just a general category called wickedness. Wickedness is used in Romans as a category behavior that is knowingly practiced by the violator. So here it is. Their lives become full of every kind of wickedness. In sin, greed, hate, envy, murder, quarreling, deception, malicious behavior, and gossip. Okay, I think we all agree that this is present in life. They become backstabbers, haters of God, insolent, proud, boastful. They invent new ways of sinning. Yeah, this is what's called perversion, I think. And they disobey their parents. Isn't it interesting how that's always thrown in? They disobey their parents. Why? Because most trouble begins, everything being equal, which it isn't, when you start disobeying your parents, because rebellion is a problem, at least in most cases, let's just say in general. Now, there are exceptions to this, of course, because the pathologies are great. And the Bible talks about the sins of the fathers and going to the second, the third, the fourth generation. So, you got to have a general teaching of the Bible here, not just a plucking it out, not cherry picking. They refuse to understand. They break their promises, are heartless, and have no mercy. All right. So those are some of the ways in which sin is filled out. Then, this reads like a political party's unofficial playbook as well, by the way. Do we know any political party that is free of these sins? Of course not. All political parties are this way. If there's someone that's not like that or doesn't have people in it like it, I don't know. I've never seen one like that. The candidates themselves swim in the same moral cesspool, unfortunately, and everybody gets it on them. Here are some more for your reading pleasure. Written in Galatians chapter 5, 19 through 21, the works of the flesh. When you follow the desires of your sinful nature, the results are very clear: sexual immorality, impurity, lustful pleasures, idolatry, sorcery, hostility, quarreling, jealousy, outbursts of anger, selfish ambition, dissension, division, envy, drunkenness, wild parties, and other sins like these. Oh boy. I was going to say something, but you'll just have to guess what it might have been. Let me tell you again, as I have said before, that anyone living that sort of life will not inherit the kingdom of God. The thought that immediately comes to mind is, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. I think that we all have sinned. I think this is one of the most verifiable, provable truths in all the world. There may not be anything else that is more provable than that. Is anyone actually qualified to lead our country, our city, our county, our schools, churches, or industries, or even our homes? Well, not really. No. Not if perfection is the goal. Whomever is chosen to lead a church or a country is a sinner and has a checkered past. Their lives have inconsistencies, mistakes they have made, and they will be, these things will be published and accentuated, of course, if you're in a public person. Everyone now gets vetted. There's opposition research, and of course, much of our lives is now recorded. But remember, who is the author and the chief accuser of all time? Lucifer. Satan, the devil, the bad guy. He is the one who is the great accuser. It's his preoccupation A compromise must be made. We must use our best judgment and common sense here. What is the decision? Is the person the right fit? What do they represent in person and policy? Calling a pastor to your church is very different from choosing a mayor or a school board superintendent. A Baptist church would not really want to call an Episcopal priest to be their pastor or a Jewish rabbi. A really nice man who runs a hardware store might be a good fit for be a part-time mayor of a hamlet of 300 people, but not your leader at General Motors. Whomever is selected as president of the United States will be flawed. The question really comes down to what is best for the United States. And that's hard for us to decipher and to discern. The word evil is thrown around a lot by partisans when describing the candidate they are against. I don't believe either candidate is evil. I think they're sinners. And they both have committed a number of sins named in the aforementioned scripture. As Bonhoeffer said, it's better to do evil than to be evil. So there's a difference, isn't there? By the time you read this article, there should be a newly elected president of the United States. And, by the time you listen to this program, but there isn't, as far as I know. And here, what you support him when you can. Remember that evil is resident in all of us. As Jesus said, and why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite. First, get rid of the log in your own eye. Then you will see enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. Well, with that thought, I think what we'll do is take another break and let our brother, Steve Simmons, tell us about how you can get involved, how you can subscribe, how you can take advantage of our website, how you can get more people in our tribe if you like, and if you want to pass along some of the things that we've been talking about. All right, be back in a minute.
If you want to expand the disciple-making movement, then share the show with your friends and colleagues. Hey, it's easy to subscribe. Simply go to iTunes or to our website, thebonhoefferproject.com, then click on The Bonhoeffer Show. Once you do, we will keep you updated with the Bonhoeffer Project's events, new materials and books, as well as the larger disciple-making movement current news. You can also access previous programs. And be sure to read Bill's weekly column, which is posted on the website. Remember, ask questions. Bill's answers are guaranteed to give you herd immunity, increase your IQ, and cause you to experience waves of euphoria. Well, not really, but his answers are really good. And now, let's get back to the Bonhoeffer Show.
My closing thought is this. The line separating good and evil passes not through states, nor between classes, nor between political parties, but right through every human heart. Even within hearts overwhelmed by evil, one small bridgehead of good is retained. And even in the best of hearts, there remains an uprooted small corner of evil. So, as Alexander Solzhenitsyn said in the Gulag Archipelago, I almost said that, didn't I? Don't be so quick to call somebody evil. Just remember that we are all part of the problem. We are all part of the solution. Ooh, that sounds like a cliche, doesn't it? Well, listen, just don't be so quick to try to get that speck out of your brother's eye until you've looked at the log in your own, and be kind and understanding and try to understand what's it like to live life in another person's shoes, in their context, and try to understand why they believe what they believe. I think that's really what I try to do, is understand a person who disagrees with me and why they do disagree with me, and respect it. Okay, that's it. Follow Jesus, and he'll teach you everything you'll ever need to know.
Well, we hope that the show wasn't too bad. Jane Hull wants everyone to know that if anything Bill said was offensive, she feels your pain. If you were upset by anything Bill and his guests said, well, mission accomplished. At the Bonhoeffer Show, we value irreverent, satirical, and generally inappropriate behavior. But when it comes to fulfilling the Great Commission, we don't mess around. Remember, subscribe. We promise. No private jets, no white suits, and definitely no toupees.